Well, thank you for agreeing to talk to me today. I'm kind of excited to get into it. So I'm just going to jump right in with some questions. So I'd kind of like to start with your background, just because I find it kind of fascinating. You started in midget racing and made your way into NHRA. So can you kind of talk to me about that progression and why drag racing was where you wanted to end up?
I've always been around the sport. I'm a fourth generation racer, and my grandfather and dad have both made a career in drag racing. But I started in quarter midgets when I was 10 years old and just kind of kept progressing, found a love for the circle track and ended up hooking up with Tony Stewart. And I got to race out of Tony Stewart Racing for 5 years, racing midgets and sprint cars, and learned a lot from, a lot of respectable crew members and crew chiefs. So I always told myself I never wanted to go drag racing unless I had an opportunity to drive a nitro funny car or Top Fuel dragster. And that dream came true. John Force called me in, I think, the end of 2016 and offered me a job to be a developmental driver. And the rest is history. I got to drive a nitro funny car first, and I've always had a love for those. They're, wild machines. And I just fell in love with it, and it's just I'm living my dream.
That's awesome. So you made your professional debut, I think it was in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say you had a pretty good start that first season. You got a win, you got Rookie of the Year. What kind of stands out to you from that season? Like, what did you learn? What do you remember the most?
I think how it all started. We had intentions to race the Top Fuel car that year, but we didn't have funding up until 2 weeks before the national event. And I had never gone down the racetrack in a Top Fuel dragster. I only had a funny car license. So we showed up to Phoenix test. The test was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and my rig showed up on Sunday after the test session was over. And we had Monday to make a run and Tuesday, but Tuesday was 100% chance of rain, and we had to be in Pomona, California on Wednesday. So we made 4 runs, just enough to get my license. Never went to the finish line. We shut off at 800, or 600 or 800 feet every run. Never went over 300, and rushed over to Pomona. We had no crew. We had to fly the entire crew in. We didn't even have truck drivers to get the trailers out to the test section. We had no awning. We had no crew shirts. We had nothing. And when we got there on Sunday, I left the part out. The trucks pulled in at 3 or 4 o'clock, and they pulled the brakes, and they just drove, all day long, 20 some hours. And they pulled the brakes. They're like, man, let's go to the hotel. We're tired. And my dad walks over and he goes, hotel? He's like, let's run this thing today. So we didn't even have a crew. All 3 other John Force Racing teams came over to my pit. They set the pit up, awning. We had crew chiefs bolting the cylinder heads on. It was wild. There was about 30 people in the pit putting this thing together. We rolled up to the starting line. The racetrack wouldn't turn the lights on for us. It was just getting dark. And we go to make a run, and the clutch malfunctioned, and it smoked the tires right off the starting line. About 14-foot header flames, big smoke cloud. Everybody and their brother was up there watching it, because they were excited for me to get my first run, and just the circumstances of all of it. And if we wouldn't have made that run on Sunday, I would have never got licensed the next day, because we had to go rebuild the entire clutch. We were out there till 2 or 3 in the morning trying to fix this thing. Got up on Monday morning and made 4 hits, and everything went smooth, and I ended up with my license.
So that's a wild story. What was the biggest adjustment for you as a driver moving from a funny car to a Top Fuel dragster?
Just the acceleration. It's the same engine combination and same horsepower, but the dragster has so much more grip that you can apply that power so much sooner. So just the acceleration off the starting line is a big thing. Like we do, 0.82 60 foots, or 820, 810, where a funny car is like an 850. And it doesn't sound like that much. It's only a few hundredths of a second, but when you're driving it, it definitely gets your attention. And the dragster is a little bit more finesse. It's a longer wheelbase, and it's pretty darty. In the funny car, you really got to manhandle it. The dragster, you got to be really smooth with the steering wheel, and the dragster, you have to, get after the steering. It's more like a sprint car.
So from that wild first run, were you happy kind of walking away from that 2019 season with the progress that you had made?
Absolutely. It was my rookie year, my first ever round of competition. I won in a pedal fest. So that was, that's kind of set the tone. I ended up leading the class off the starting line. I had the best reaction time average out of the whole category in NHRA, and ended up with the rookie year. So I don't really think it could have gone much better. It was definitely a lot of work. It was stressful. I had over 43 people work on my car that year. We switched crew chiefs halfway through the season. Nothing was easy about it, but everybody kept working hard and we stayed focused and prevailed.
So I know COVID kind of impacted the trajectory of your driving career. I believe you worked on Robert Height's funny car kind of during 2021. So was it weird getting back in the car last season, or did it just feel like, okay, this is normal, like we're back to it?
I was so excited to get back. I went from living my dream to working construction during COVID. So
Okay.
it was definitely gut wrenching. It broke my heart. I was depressed all year long in 20 and even in 21. Obviously wasn't what I wanted to do, but I did get to work with some great people. I got to work with my dad. He tuned that race car that year, and I learned a lot about the race car. And I feel like I earned a lot of respect from a lot of people. Just going with the flow and taking strides and making the best out of a opportunity that I didn't really want. So it was awesome to get back in the car. We were so hungry, and I got a lot of my crew members back from the 19 season to come back last year. So it was just like a big old family reunion.
Fun. So you came back pretty strong last year, especially I would say in the playoffs. What were some of the struggles that you dealt with in the early season, and then what came together for you during that final stretch?
Well, kind of the same situation. We found out only a few weeks before we were going
Okay.
testing that we had funding again, so we had to thrash to put a crew together, and just getting everybody to work together, learning new positions. We had new crew chiefs, Joe Barlam and Ron Tobler. Ron Tobler hadn't tuned a dragster in 20 years or so. So just getting it all dialed in. We did go out to the first race and we went to the final round and almost won the thing. So but we kind of fell in a lull. We were having engine issues, hurting parts and exploding engines. We weren't very friendly on the budget through the middle of the season, but it was just a few small things that needed fixed, and we went testing right before the playoffs. Got the thing dialed in, and we had the best car in the countdown. So we earned the most points, went from 12th to third in the standings. And if we would have had one or two more good races before the playoffs started, we probably would have been holding the world champion trophy.
So that first win at Maple Grove, you had a pretty large jump in the standings, kind of like you said, you went from 12th to I think 6th. At that point, were you kind of thinking, hey, the championship might be in reach for us, or did you have a different focus during the playoffs?
I did think the championship was within reach. We struggled, but it only takes a run or two to fix one of these race cars, and when you get hot, you're hot. So I even said in my interview after we won, we were sitting 12th and we went out and won Reading, and I said we're back in the fight. We could go win the championship now, and we almost did. So it was just really gratifying to have success after we struggled so long, and it was cool that we all went through that depressing time together and then prevailed on the other end of it, and it's definitely tastes a little sweeter that way.
So a lot of the talk in the playoffs was kind of about, Justin Ashley and your JFR teammate, Brittany Force. Do you feel like there is maybe an advantage or less pressure kind of flying a little under the radar, or would you rather have everyone's eyes on you?
I feel like I perform pretty well under pressure. Like we were just talking, my whole career's kind of been I've been thrown to the wolves. Last minute deals thrown together, and you got to go out and perform, especially racing at John Force Racing. This is the pinnacle of drag racing motorsports teams, and as a young kid, I always kind of feel like I'm the underdog. A lot of these people I'm racing against, I looked up to as a kid, and the Doug Colettas and the Tony Schumachers, Steve Torrance, all these people. I was googly eyed over as a kid. Now I'm lining up next to him in the other lane, and I feel like I have to prove myself. So I think we've been doing a good job at that, and I think we're going to have a really strong car this season.
You ended the year with a win at the finals and you finished third in the points. So What was that day like for you getting that final win?
Oh, it was awesome. I've always wanted to win at Pomona. I've actually been to we were talking with the guys yesterday. I've been to the final round the last 3 times I've been to Pomona. So between 2020 and then 22, we went to the finals at the beginning of the year and the end of the year and finally capped one off. That's my favorite racetrack. So it's always been a dream of mine to win there and to get it done, especially in the fashion that we did it. We went out and ran our career best ET twice in a row, 364.2 and then 364.1, which was tied with the quickest run all season long. So, it couldn't have been a better final round. And to do it with Ron Tobler, it was his last race of his career, retiring, to run that quick in the final round at Pomona, win it, and just go out on top like that. It was unbelievable.
I'm sure that gives you kind of a lot of momentum, going into this season. So kind of in light of that, what are your biggest takeaways from 2022 that you kind of plan to bring into this season?
I think, our run log's getting bigger, and that's only going to help us. Our playbooks stacking up, and we have a lot of good runs and good data to build off of. So I think that we're going to come out swinging. We're going to have a really strong car. But I think I learned a lot about myself last year. I was very frustrated during the middle of the season with how we were performing and exploding parts and the whole 9 yards. I actually ended up breaking my hand at one point, punching the race car at the top end of the racetrack. So there was a lot of frustration built up. And, I showed, some maybe a little angerish emotions in some of my interviews. So just learning to, keep cool. Don't let anybody see when you're frustrated or stressed out, because they can kind of pick on you and attack you at that point. So just learning to be a better person and be more confident, stronger, and don't let the little things get in the way, because it can turn around really quick like it did.
So I'm assuming the big goal this season is the championship. Is that kind of the main thing you're going for?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the whole John Force Racing operation is going to be really strong, and we made some changes over on my car that are going to be plenty capable of doing that and performing well and strong all year long and getting a championship. So I'm ready. The crew chiefs are ready. The team's fired up. I got a couple of my buddies working on the car. We've changed 3 or 4 employees this year and a crew chief. So another new team, a wild off season for Austin Prock once again, and we're gonna come out swinging.
And it does take a lot of consistency. It takes, wins to get there to the championship and be there at the end. So what are some of the small goals that you might have, whether it's just tracks you're looking forward to, wins you want to get?
I think, just as a whole, like getting #1 qualifiers, those little things like that are really cool. I got my first one last season after trying for, 2.5 seasons to try and get one. And that was very gratifying. So just earn as many points as we can, try and make the engine run a little bit cleaner. We don't want to be hurting parts, and when the engine's happy, it performs a lot better. So, and then on top of that, everybody can always improve. I need to improve as a driver. I think I can be quicker off the starting line than I have been in previous years. So just focusing on that and just focusing on being consistent and try and make 0 mistakes. The team that makes the least mistakes is gonna, come out and win races and perform strong. So, I think those would be the little things that I'm looking forward to improve.
Okay. And then last question, you've mentioned, it was your dream to be here. Like it was your dream to be, Top Fuel or funny car driver. Is it everything that you expected or wanted it to be?
Absolutely. I have so much fun. It's hard to call this a job. I'm living my dream, and I love every second of it. I love the people that I work with. I love the fans, interacting with them, and to drive a 13,000 horsepower race car every weekend is pretty damn badass.